Okay, hi everyone. Today we're going to be looking at two watches from the, I suppose you could say, brand Parnis. Now, Parnis, as some other YouTube reviewers have already explained, isn't a company name as such. There's no one company called Parnis. Rather, it's a brand name that's generic and stamped on an awful lot of watches coming out of China. Now, one of the implications of that is that Parnis watches can vary significantly in price and also quality and also style and design. So that being said, one of the reasons for doing this comparison, if you like, is to show you a little bit of that variation and what to not so much expect as look out for if you're buying a Parnis watch. So with regard to the two watches that you can see here, the black PVD one on the left is a quartz chronograph, and it's obviously an homage to an IWC Top Gun, very famous model. The other is a mechanical watch. It's automatic and hand winding, and it has a GMT function too. Now this one is in a slightly more original style, if you like. It's not a specific homage, a direct homage to any specific watch, although it's very clearly in the style of quite reminiscent of a Breguet or Chrono Swiss or something like that. So having said what I just said about the variation that you can find in quality, style and so on with Parnis watches, and also price, what do I think of these two watches before we get into looking at them specifically? How do they stack up against each other in rough terms? The first thing I would say is that they're both very good for what they are and for the price. Now, I honestly can't remember exactly what I paid for either of these watches, but they were each underneath the £150 mark, significantly so. I'm fairly sure that the Top Gun, the IWC homage Parnis that you're looking at, was around about £100 sterling. And in that price bracket, the main point for me to make is that they're both excellent watches, representing a great deal of value at that price. But the mechanical watch on the right is a far superior watch. Now, looking at the IWC homage Parnis individually, first of all, the build quality on this watch is great for the price, the finishing is great for the price, there aren't any noticeable printing errors on the dial, the way the lume is applied is very crisp and clean. Now, the lume is terrible, it's not the worst I've seen, but it is bad and barely shows up even in complete darkness, but it's printed on the dial very well. The chronograph represents the only real technical or construction flaw that I can find in the watch, because although it works perfectly once you use the pushers to switch it on, and stops and returns perfectly, it starts from the first second marker rather than the 12 o'clock position. One thing to mention about this watch is that the strap does represent fantastic quality for the price. It's a very robust two-material strap with a very resilient synthetic material on top and leather underneath. And the leather makes all the difference because the synthetic material is very rough and would be unbearably scratchy without the leather. My only real issue with the watch, and the reason why it doesn't get as much wrist time as some others in my collection, is simply that it is a homage. And I don't have a particular problem with that, but I value originality more, so it does tend to take a back seat to the more original watches in my collection. So turning to the GMT Parnis, some features to point out are that the GMT hand is on a sub-dial rather than on the main dial, and that there's a day-night indicator giving the appearance of a moon phase complication. The watch is incredibly well constructed and finished for the price, and not only looks but feels much more expensive than it actually is. If you know watches and turn it over in your hands for long enough, you can find rough edges and so on, but all first impressions of the watch are of a luxury piece. Now, although the quality is impressive, the style and design of this watch are what make it one of my favourite pieces. Everything about the design of the dial is right. It's complicated enough to be endlessly interesting and attractive, but it manages to avoid being cluttered and has a timeless elegance to it. The hands might appear black on camera, but they are actually blue, and there's an electric blue effect when they catch the light. The only unfortunate thing about the watch, and it's negligible, is that the strap, while decent, is nothing special and should eventually be replaced with something like a Hirsch or some other high quality strap in order to do the watch justice. Now, the final thing that I can't do this video without pointing out is the beautiful display back on the GMT Parnis. You simply aren't going to see anything this decorated in another watch at this price, and the only potential issue with it is that you'll constantly be tempted to take the watch off in order to look at it. The visible screws are blue, which is common in Chinese watches, and although it might not come across on camera, there's a very attractive pattern embossed on the steel as well. I believe the crystal is mineral, although it doesn't feel like the same type as the crystal on the face of the watch. This display back definitely completes the watch, and it's the type of extra touch that lifts the whole piece far above the other Parnis that I've shown here. So thanks for watching, guys. If you take anything away from this video, I hope it's that many Parnis watches are worth collecting, and that your experience of any one Parnis watch won't necessarily be something that you can use as a guide when buying another. They are all very different, and if you make sure that you know what you're getting before you buy, there are some great value, high quality watches to be found under the Parnis name. So please share your experience of any Parnis watches that you've owned in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.